The alarm came at dawn, Earth time. Captain was drinking his morning coffee when every screen in the monitoring station lit up red. He had worked at Horizon's Edge for 12 years, watching the empty space between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Nothing ever happened, until now. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission," his communications officer said. Her hands shook as she worked the controls. It's from the Galactic Council." Set down his coffee. The Council hadn't spoken to humanity in 300 years, not since the day they called humans barbarians and told them to leave. "Put it through." The hologram flickered to life. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms appeared. It looked tired. No, worse than tired, it looked defeated. "I am ambassador of the Alliance," the alien said. "I speak for what remains of the Galactic Council. We need your help." Felt his chest tighten. The proud council begging humans for help. Something was very wrong. "The Void Swarm came from nowhere," continued. "They eat entire star systems. Our fleets are destroyed. 12 sectors have gone dark. We've lost 847 billion lives in 6 months. The alien's voice cracked. "We're dying, all of us, and we have nowhere else to turn." The transmission ended. Sat in silence, staring at the empty space where the hologram had been. Behind him, his crew waited. "Contact Earth," he said quietly. "Tell them the galaxy is calling." 2 days later stood in the council chamber on Earth. She had gray hair now, though she was only 50. Being humanity's chief diplomatic officer aged you fast, especially when you had no one to talk to. The room was full of Earth leaders. Presidents, generals, scientists, they all wanted to know the same thing. "Why should we help them?" asked the European premier. "They threw us out, called us monsters." Pulled up the data on the main screen. Images of destroyed worlds. Populations reduced to nothing. Space itself torn apart by something that shouldn't exist. "Because 847 billion people are dead," she said, "and that number grows every day." "They made their choice 300 years ago," the Asian Union representative said. "After we ended the war, they condemned us, said we were too brutal, too efficient. They demanded we disarm." "I remember," said. She had studied the histories. The war had lasted 50 years before humanity joined. The Council's fleets had been losing slowly, following their rules of civilized warfare. Humanity ended it in 3 weeks. The Council had been terrified. "We won too fast," the North American general said. "We didn't fight like they expected. We used every advantage, every weapon. We hit them so hard they couldn't recover, and the Council couldn't handle it. They told us to conform or leave," said. "So we left. We came home and closed the door. And now they want us to open it again." The premier leaned back. "Do we have the capability?" Nodded to the man standing in the corner. Admiral stepped forward. He was 70 years old and looked like he could still fight wars with his bare hands. "We kept building," said. "After we left Council space, we didn't stop. We improved everything. Every ship, every weapon, every system. We told the galaxy we were disarming. We lied." Murmurs filled the room. "Show them," the premier said. Pulled up new images. Massive structures hidden throughout the solar system, under Europa's frozen oceans, inside hollowed asteroids, in the darkness beyond Pluto, ships that made the old warships look like toys. "We have 200 dreadnoughts," said. "Each one is the size of a small moon. We have weapon systems the Council banned 3 centuries ago. Quantum decimators, reality anchors, entropic cascades. We have a fleet that could fight the entire galaxy." "And you kept this secret?" someone asked. "We learned our lesson," said. "We don't tell people what we can do anymore. We just do it when we must." The room fell silent, looked at each face. She saw fear. She saw anger. She saw old wounds that had never fully healed. "The question isn't whether we can help," she said. "The question is whether we will." The premier stood. "What are your terms, Admiral?" Complete tactical authority, said without hesitation. No interference. No observers telling us how to fight. No council members second-guessing our strategies. And when this is over, no judgment of our methods. They'll never agree to that, someone said. Smiled sadly. They're desperate, they'll agree to anything. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, it was unanimous. Humanity would answer the call. Sent the message to the council herself. She kept it short. Humanity will assist. Admiral commands all military operations. You will not interfere. You will not question our methods. If you break these terms, we leave. Do you accept? The reply came in minutes. One word, yes. In his office, Admiral activated protocol. Across the solar system, machines that had slept for centuries began to wake. Ice cracked on Europa as the shipyards rose. Asteroids split open to reveal hidden docks. In the dark beyond Neptune, engines burned to life for the first time in 300 years. Stood at his window, watching the lights appear across the solar system. Each light was a ship. Each ship was a promise. Humanity was going back to war. He thought about what the council had called them. Barbarians, monsters, too brutal for civilized space. They wanted civilized warfare, he said to himself. They got civilized defeat. Let's see what uncivilized victory looks like. His second-in-command entered. Sir, the fleet will be ready in 72 hours. Good, said. Send a message to all ship captains. Tell them we're not going to save the galaxy. We're going to remind it why humanity doesn't lose wars. He turned from the window. 300 years ago, humanity had walked away. Now they were walking back, and the galaxy had forgotten what humans could do when they stopped holding back. The council had pleaded for help. They were about to learn that when you wake the sleeping giant, you don't get to control what it does next. The human war machines were awake, and they were angry. Commander Minu had seen many things in his 40 years of service, but nothing prepared him for this moment. The soul's fury was waking up. He stood on the bridge of a ship the size of a city. Around him, systems that had been quiet for 3 centuries hummed to life. Lights flickered on in sequence, row after row, until the entire command center blazed with information. Power cores at 30%, his engineer reported, rising to 50, 70, full power in 3 minutes. Minu watched through the forward viewport as the ice of Europa's ocean fell away. The ship had been buried under kilometers of frozen water, hidden from any eyes that might look. Now it rose like a mountain breaking through the surface. All systems green, the engineer said. Soul's Fury is operational. Around them, 199 other dreadnoughts were doing the same thing, waking up, stretching, getting ready to fight. Minu opened the ship-wide channel. This is Commander Minu to all crew. Welcome back. We've been asleep for a long time. The galaxy forgot about us. That was their mistake. Today we remind them what humanity can do. In the weapons bay, Chief Engineer Sara ran her hands over the control panel. She had designed most of these systems herself. The Council had called them genocidal, too powerful, too dangerous. They had demanded humanity destroy them. Humanity had smiled and said yes. Then they built better versions. Quantum decimators online, her assistant reported. Reality anchors charging. Entropic cascade systems ready. Sora pulled up the weapon profiles. The quantum decimators didn't just destroy ships. They collapsed the space around them, making it impossible for anything to exist there. The reality anchors prevented enemies from escaping to other dimensions. The entropic cascades aged everything they touched by thousands of years in seconds. These weapons are insane, her assistant whispered. No, Sora said. They're efficient, there's a difference. A message came through from Admiral. How long until we can fight? Sora smiled. Sir, we can fight right now. We've been ready for 300 years. In the intelligence center, Officer was doing what she did best, finding patterns. The Council had sent everything they had on the Void Swarm, 300 years of battle data, thousands of engagements, millions of casualties, and they still didn't understand what they were fighting. Spent 6 hours going through it all, then she saw it. "They're predictable," she said to her team. "The swarm attacks in waves, always the same pattern, 3 probing strikes, then a main assault, then a retreat if they fail." "The Council didn't see this?" someone asked. "They did," said, "but they couldn't use it. Their warfare doctrine doesn't allow aggressive counterattacks. They only defend. They wait for the enemy to come to them." She pulled up a tactical map. "The swarm has 17 staging areas. If we hit all of them at once, they can't coordinate. They'll fragment. Then we can destroy them piece by piece." Her assistant stared at the map. "The Council would never approve this. It's too aggressive." "Good thing we're not asking for approval," said. Fleet Coordinator stood in the logistics center, surrounded by screens showing every ship in the human fleet. 200 dreadnoughts, 5,000 cruisers, 20,000 support vessels, the largest military deployment in human history. And she had to make sure every single one of them had what they needed. "Ammunition reserves at maximum," one officer reported. "Fuel pods loaded, medical bays stocked, crew provisions for 18 months of sustained combat. Check the deployment schedule. We need to be ready in 72 hours. Are we on track?" "Ahead of schedule, ma'am. We'll be ready in 60. A notification appeared on her screen. A Council observer ship was requesting permission to approach. Sighed, the Council wanted to see what humanity had built. Fine, let them look. The Council observer's name was. He was a military analyst who had studied human tactics for decades. He thought he understood what humanity was capable of. He was wrong. His ship approached the human fleet assembly point near Jupiter. At first, he saw nothing. Then his sensors picked up the first dreadnought. His breath caught. The ship was enormous. It dwarfed anything the Council had ever built, and there were dozens of them, hundreds, all appearing on his sensors at once as they. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They were supposed to disarm." His communications officer looked pale. "Sir, we're receiving a message from the human coordinator. She's inviting us to observe the weapons test." "What weapons test?" The answer came immediately. One of the dreadnoughts, a ship called the Thunder, powered up its main weapon. Space itself seemed to bend around it. Then it fired. The target was an old asteroid, 50 kilometers wide. The quantum decimator hit it dead center. The asteroid didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next there was nothing, not even debris, just empty space where solid matter had been. Felt his blood run cold. "Get me the Council now." The message sent was marked urgent. They didn't disarm. They were building. The human fleet is beyond anything we imagined. Their weapons violate every treaty we ever made, and they have 200 ships that could each destroy a planet. The Council received the message in silence. Ambassador read it 3 times. "What have we done?" someone asked. "We survived," said quietly. "Whatever happens next, we let them save us. Then we pray they go back to sleep." On Earth, received the Council's panicked messages. She deleted them without responding. Instead, she drafted humanity's final terms. "Admiral will have complete tactical authority. You will not monitor our weapons. You will not track our ships. You will not question our methods. Point us to the enemy and stay out of our way. These are not negotiable." She sent it and waited. The Council's response came in 5 minutes. Full agreement, no changes, no arguments. Almost felt sorry for them, almost. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Pride. Around him, the entire human fleet waited for his orders. He thought about the Council's demands 3 centuries ago. Disarm, conform, fight the way they fought, lose slowly instead of winning quickly. "All ships, this is Admiral," he said. "300 years ago, the galaxy told us we were too brutal, too efficient. They said we didn't understand civilized warfare. They were right. We don't fight civilized wars. We fight to win. We fight to end threats permanently, and we don't apologize for being good at it." He pulled up the tactical display. 17 void swarm staging areas, thousands of enemy ships, billions of lives hanging in the balance. The Council failed for 300 years because they fought with one hand tied behind their backs. We're not the Council. Both hands free, all weapons hot. We're going to show the void swarm what happens when humans stop pretending to be civilized. He raised his hand. Across the fleet, every ship charged their weapons. "All ships," said, "jump on my mark, target the Tyros system. The Council's Fifth Fleet is trapped there. We're getting them out." His hand dropped. "Jump!" 25,000 ships vanished from Sol system in a flash of light. The human war machine was moving. And the galaxy was about to remember why they had been so afraid 300 years ago. The Tyros system was dying. Captain watched from his stealth corvette as the Council's Fifth Fleet fought its last battle. 3,000 ships remained from an original force of 30,000. They were surrounded by void swarm entities that flickered in and out of reality, impossible to target, impossible to kill. "Silent Wind to Fleet Command," reported. "I count 15,000 swarm entities. They're phasing between dimensions. The Council ships can't lock onto them." "How long have they been fighting?" Commander Minu's voice came through. 3 weeks, said. "They lose 100 ships every day. At this rate, they'll be gone in a month." "Not anymore," Minu said. "We're coming in." Sensors lit up. 25,000 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The fleet was so large it blocked out the stars. The void swarm noticed immediately. Half their forces turned toward the new arrivals. "They're coming for us," co-pilot said. "Good," replied, "let them." On the Soul's Fury, Minu watched the swarm approach. The entities looked like tears in space itself, dark holes with edges that flickered with purple light. They moved fast, appearing and disappearing as they phased through dimensions. "Tactical analysis," Minu ordered. Officer's voice came through. "They're using dimensional rifts to avoid damage. When they sense danger, they shift to another dimension, then come back when it's safe." "So we can't hit them." "The Council can't hit them," corrected. "We can. Chief Engineer Sora's reality anchors will lock them in our dimension. Then they're trapped." Minu smiled. "All ships prepare reality anchors, target the swarm entities, lock them down." Across the fleet, 200 dreadnoughts activated their reality anchors. Space around each swarm entity became rigid, solid, impossible to escape. The swarm tried to phase away. They couldn't. For the first time in 300 years, they were stuck. "Weapons free," Minu said. Engineer Sora watched her weapons fire for the first time in combat. The quantum decimators hit like hammers of light. Each shot collapsed the space around a swarm entity, crushing it into nothing. The reality anchors kept them from escaping. The entropic cascades aged them into dust. It wasn't a battle, it was extermination. "Target efficiency at 98%, her assistant reported. "We're hitting everything we aim at." Sora watched the tactical display. 15,000 swarm entities had been reduced to 10,000, then 5,000, then 1,000. The entire engagement lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, the space around the Council fleet was clear. Not a single swarm entity remained. The dimensional rifts they used to regenerate were collapsed. There was nothing left. "Check for survivors," Minu ordered. "None," Sora reported. "Complete elimination." On the Council ships, there was only silence. Psionics specialist sat in her meditation chamber, her mind reaching out into the void. She had felt something during the battle, a presence, a consciousness. They're not just animals, she said to her team. There's intelligence there, a hive mind. Can you communicate with them? Her supervisor asked. I did, said quietly. For just a moment before we killed them all, they were afraid. Of us. Of dying, opened her eyes. They're connected, all of them. When we kill one, the rest feel it. We just killed 15,000. The whole swarm knows we're here now. Good, her supervisor said. Fear is a weapon too. Wasn't so sure. She had felt something else in that brief contact, desperation. The swarm wasn't just attacking, they were running from something. But before she could explore that feeling, Marine Commander burst into the room. We've got one, he said. A swarm entity still alive. The reality anchor has it trapped. Led his team onto the capture ship. They wore armor that made them look like walking tanks. Each Marine carried weapons that could punch through starship hulls. The trapped swarm entity writhed in its dimensional cage. Up close, could see it was made of something like liquid shadow, constantly moving, constantly trying to escape. Containment field stable, his tech specialist reported. It can't phase out. Approached carefully. Through his helmet sensors, he could see the entity was trying to communicate. Pulses of energy that might be language, might be screaming. Get it to the science bay, he ordered, and triple the containment fields. I don't trust this thing. As they moved the entity to a transport pod, it pulsed once. Translator caught fragments, words, concepts. Home, dying, escape, survive. Froze. Did anyone else hear that? His team nodded. Get this to intelligence officer immediately, said. We need to understand what it's saying. On the Council flagship, Admiral couldn't believe what he was seeing. The human fleet had arrived 18 minutes ago. In that time, they had destroyed an enemy force that had been killing the Council for 3 weeks. Not a single human ship was damaged. Not a single human casualty. Howe asked, how is this possible? His sensor officer pulled up the battle data. Sir, their weapons don't just destroy. They prevent regeneration. They lock down dimensional movement. They counter every advantage the swarm has. But we've been fighting the swarm for 300 years. Why didn't we develop these weapons? The officer looked uncomfortable. We did, sir. Humanity proposed them during the war. We rejected them as too brutal. Sat down heavily. The Council had doomed themselves with their own rules. A transmission came through from the human flagship. Admiral's face appeared on screen. Admiral said, your fleet is safe. We're setting up a defensive perimeter. You should retreat to the secondary base and repair your ships. Admiral, we can't thank you enough. Don't thank me, said. This was a skirmish. Point us to the real fight. Pulled up the tactical map of the galaxy. 17 void swarm staging areas. Thousands of infested systems. The main swarm fleet at the galactic edge. There, he said, highlighting the largest concentration. Sector 9. That's where their main force is gathering. 50,000 entities, maybe more. Studied the map for 3 seconds. We'll handle it, anything else. Admiral, 50,000 entities. Even your fleet. Will be enough, interrupted. We don't fight the way you fight, Admiral. We don't wear down the enemy over months and years. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we end it. Trust me. The transmission ended. Looked at his officers. They're going to attack the main swarm fleet, all of it at once. That's suicide, someone said. For us, yes, agreed. But they're not us. Send a message to the Council. Tell them humanity just saved 3,000 of our ships in 18 minutes. Tell them we're about to see what they can really do. On the Soul's Fury, Minu received reports from all ships. 0 casualties, 0 damage, minimal ammunition used. That was easier than the simulations, Sora said. Because the swarm didn't know what we could do, replied. Now they do. The next fight will be harder. Minu nodded. Then we better hit them before they adapt. How fast can we move the entire fleet? 6 hours to Sector 9, his navigator said. Make it 4, Minyu ordered. I want to hit them while they're still scared. He opened a channel to Admiral. Sir, requesting permission to engage the main swarm fleet. Permission granted, said. Commander Minyu, show them what 18 minutes was just the warm-up. Minyu turned to his crew. All ships jump to Sector 9, combat formation, we're ending this. The human fleet vanished in a flash of light, leaving the stunned Council forces behind. In the darkness between stars, the Void Swarm felt the deaths of 15,000 of their own. They knew the humans were coming. And for the first time in 300 years, they knew what it felt like to be prey. Admiral stood before the holographic display of the entire galaxy. Red markers showed where the Void Swarm had established their territory. 17 staging areas, 42 conquered systems, 300 billion dead. The Council had fought defensively for 300 years, trying to hold the line. They had failed. Humanity was going to try something different. All fleet commanders listen carefully, said into the fleet-wide channel. We're not defending, we're attacking. All staging areas simultaneously. We split into 15 battle groups. We hit them everywhere at once. They can't coordinate if they're fighting on 15 fronts. The hologram shifted, showing the deployment. Each battle group had enough firepower to flatten a solar system. The Council will call this reckless, continued. They'll say we're spreading ourselves too thin. Let them talk. We're not here to play it safe. We're here to win. He looked at each commander's face on the screen. Minyu, Sara, all of them ready. Jump in 30 minutes, said. Hit hard, hit fast, no mercy. Commander commanded the Expeditionary Corps, the ground assault teams. While the fleet fought in space, his job was to reclaim the colony worlds the swarm had taken. His forces loaded into drop ships, 30,000 Marines ready for combat. They wore powered armor that let them survive in any environment. They carried weapons that could level buildings. First target is Colony Theta 7, said to his officers. Population of 2 million. The swarm took it 6 months ago. Intelligence says there might be survivors in the deep bunkers. How do we get past the swarm entities on the surface? Someone asked. Smiled, we don't go past them, we go through them. Navigator plotted the course. The Council said the route to Theta 7 was impassable. Too many asteroid fields, too much radiation, too dangerous. Algorithms said differently. I can get us there in 3 hours, she reported, but we'll be flying through spaces the Council maps as no-go zones. Why does the Council avoid those areas? Asked. Because ships that go in don't always come out. Council ships, corrected. We're not Council ships, take us through. The drop ships launched from the main fleet, following S route. They flew through asteroid fields at speeds that should have been impossible. They navigated radiation storms that would have fried Council sensors. They used predictive algorithms to avoid collisions by microseconds. 3 hours later, they arrived at Theta 7, intact, exactly as promised. Deploying ground forces, ordered. 30,000 Marines hit the colony world like a meteor storm. The swarm entities on the surface tried to fight back. They didn't stand a chance. Forces used teleportation technology the Council had banned as inhumane. One moment a Marine would be in cover. The next, they'd be behind enemy lines, weapons blazing. The swarm couldn't predict it, couldn't counter it. The battle for Theta 7 lasted 40 minutes. Colony secured, reported. Found survivors in Bunker Complex 7, approximately 800 people. They're malnourished but alive. Good work, Admiral replied. Next target. Theta 9 and Theta 12 will hit both simultaneously. The Council will say that's impossible. Then they shouldn't watch, said. Chief scientist worked in the research bay, studying the swarm entity Marine commander had captured. She had listened to psionic specialists report about the hive mind. Now she was building a weapon to exploit it. If they're all connected, explained to her team, then they share everything. Thoughts, pain, fear, we can use that. She designed what she called the harmonic disruptor. It sent a signal that matched the swarm's hive mind frequency, but instead of communicating, it screamed. When we activate this near any swarm entity, said, every entity connected to it will feel the feedback. It'll cascade through their entire network. That's, her assistant paused, that's brutal. That's efficient, corrected. We're not trying to torture them, we're trying to make them stop fighting. She sent the weapon specifications to all ships in the fleet. Within hours, every human vessel had a harmonic disruptor installed. The Void Swarm tried to counterattack. Their largest force, 70,000 entities, jumped into the Sol system. They were going to destroy Earth itself, cut off the human fleet at its source. They arrived to find Earth waiting. The planet was surrounded by defense platforms, millions of them, each one armed with weapons that made the dreadnoughts look weak, and behind them a planetary shield powered by contained singularities. The swarm hit the shield with everything they had. The shield didn't even flicker. Then the defense platforms opened fire. Automated systems tracked every swarm entity simultaneously. Quantum decimators fired in perfect synchronization. Reality anchors locked down dimensional escapes. The harmonic disruptors screamed through the hive mind. The battle lasted 47 minutes. Not a single swarm entity survived. Not a single defense platform was damaged. On Earth, people watched from their cities as the sky lit up with weapon fire. They had lived in peace for 300 years, thinking their military was gone. They had been wrong. Their military had just been sleeping. Diplomatic officer watched the battle from Earth's command center. Next to her stood council observer, who had insisted on staying to document humanity's capabilities. 47 minutes, whispered. They sent 70,000 entities. Your automated defenses destroyed them in 47 minutes. Earth is our home, said simply. We protect our home. But the weapons, the scale, you've been building all of this since you left Council space. We've been building since before we left, corrected. When you told us to disarm, we smiled and showed you empty shipyards. Meanwhile, we were building shipyards in places you'd never look. Pulled up his data tablet. I need to ask, why keep building? You had left galactic affairs, you had peace. Looked at him, because peace doesn't last, because sooner or later something always comes, and when it does you can either be ready or be dead. We chose ready. The council will fear you after this. They already feared us, said. That's why they made us leave. The only difference is now they know their fear was justified. A message came through from Admiral. Operation Sector 9 is complete. Enemy forces eliminated. Casualty report, 0 human losses. Swarm losses, total. His hands shook as he read the report. You destroyed 50,000 entities with 0 casualties. We had good intelligence, said. Officer figured out their attack patterns. Engineer Sora's weapons countered their defenses. Scientists' harmonic disruptor disrupted their coordination. When you understand your enemy and use the right tools, victory isn't luck, it's mathematics. Across the galaxy, the human battle groups completed their missions. 15 simultaneous assaults, 15 complete victories. The Void Swarm's staging areas were destroyed. Their conquered territories were liberated. Their forces were scattered. The Council watched in stunned disbelief. In 2 weeks, humanity had accomplished what they couldn't do in 300 years. Ambassadors sent a message to Earth. Admiral, the Council wishes to express our gratitude. Your tactics were effective. They were necessary, replied. But we're not done. Intelligence officer has located the swarm's home dimension, the place they're coming from. What do you intend to do? End this permanently, said. We're going to their home dimension and making sure they never threaten this galaxy again. That's impossible, said. No ship can survive in another dimension. No council ship, corrected. Our ships can. We've been preparing for this since we learned about dimensional travel. But entering another dimension, that's a one-way trip. Only if you're not prepared, said. We're always prepared, Ambassador. It's why we win. The transmission ended. Sat in silence. Then he asked his aide a question. What did we do 300 years ago? What did we create by pushing humanity away? The aide had no answer. In human space, Admiral gave the order. All ships converge on coordinates Delta 7. We're going dimensional, full fleet deployment. This ends now. The human war machine was moving again. And this time, they were taking the fight to a place no one had ever gone. The Void Swarm's home dimension. The place where nightmares came from. Humanity was going there, not to hide, not to defend, but to win. Intelligence officer stared at the data until her eyes hurt. 3 weeks of analysis. 3 weeks of studying every piece of information about the Void Swarm. And finally, she had found it. The source. There, she said, pointing to a specific coordinate in space. That's where they're coming from, a dimensional rift. It leads to their home. Admiral studied the data. What's on the other side? I don't know, admitted. No one's ever gone through and come back, but based on the energy readings, it's a dying dimension, collapsing into itself. So they're not invading, said slowly. They're escaping. That's my theory, said. Their home is dying. They need somewhere else to go. Our dimension is stable, so they're trying to take it. Was quiet for a long moment. What does the council want to do? Seal the rift, trap them in their dying dimension, let nature take its course. That's genocide. They call it self-defense, said. Shook his head. Prepare the fleet. We're going through that rift, but we're not going to kill them. We're going to talk to them. The council's emergency session was chaos. Ambassador watched as delegates shouted over each other. Humanity wants to do what? Someone yelled. They want to enter the void dimension, said. Admiral believes we can negotiate. Negotiate, another delegate laughed, with the creatures that killed 800 billion of us. Humanity believes the swarm is desperate, not evil, explained. They think there's another solution. And if they're wrong, if takes the entire human fleet into that dimension and gets destroyed, then we're all dead. The swarm will overrun us. Pulled up the probability analysis captain had sent. Human calculations give them a 34% chance of survival. The room went silent. 34%, someone whispered. They're willing to risk everything on 34%. Humans don't think the way we do, said. To them, 34% is acceptable odds if the outcome is worth it. What outcome? What could possibly be worth those odds? Ending the war without genocide, said quietly. Humans are efficient killers, we've seen that, but apparently they prefer not to kill if there's another way. Fleet coordinator worked around the clock, preparing for the dimensional breach. Every ship needed special modifications. Every system needed. It was the most complex operation humanity had ever attempted. How long until we're ready? Admiral asked. 48 hours, replied. Maybe less if we skip some safety checks. Don't skip anything, said. We're jumping into unknown space. I want every precaution. Nodded. Around her the fleet was gathering. 25,000 ships, all preparing to cross into another dimension. It should have been impossible. But humanity had stopped caring about impossible 300 years ago. Young captain walked through her ship, the Morning Star. At 28, she was the youngest fleet captain in human history. She had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. Staying behind. You understand what you're agreeing to? Admiral had asked her. Yes, sir, said. If we can stabilize the void dimension, someone needs to maintain the equipment. That means staying there, possibly forever. You could die. I could, agreed. But if it works, billions of lives are saved. That seems like a fair trade. Had looked at her for a long moment. You remind me of myself at your age, too brave for your own good. Thank you, sir. Now, as her ship prepared to cross dimensions, walked among her crew, 50 volunteers, all of them knowing they might never see home again. Are you scared? Her first officer asked. Terrified, admitted, but we're doing the right thing, that's what matters. The dimensional breach opened like a wound in space. Through it, the human fleet could see another reality, dark, twisted, dying. All ships, Admiral ordered, proceed through the breach, combat formation, weapons hot but do not fire unless fired upon. The Soul's Fury led the way. Commander Minyu watched as his ship crossed the threshold between dimensions. For a moment, everything went wrong. Sensors screamed. Navigation failed. Reality itself seemed uncertain. Then they were through. The void dimension was chaos. Space folded in on itself. Stars burned in colors that shouldn't exist, and everywhere void swarm entities filled the darkness. Millions of them. Sir, Minyu's sensor officer said quietly, there are too many. Even with our entire fleet, we can't. We're not here to fight, Minyu interrupted. We're here to talk, you're up. Psionics specialist sat in her meditation chamber, her mind reaching out into the madness. She could feel the swarm's hive mind, desperate, afraid, dying along with their dimension. I'm making contact, she reported. The swarm's consciousness was vast, alien, nothing like human thought, but beneath the strangeness found something familiar, the will to survive, the fear of extinction. She sent a simple message. We don't want to fight, we want to help. The response was immediate, confusion, suspicion, hope. Show us, the swarm responded. Opened her eyes. They're listening, get Chief Scientist on the line. S team had been preparing for this moment. Using technology adapted from the reality anchors, they had designed dimensional stabilizers, machines that could prevent a dying dimension from collapsing. It's theoretical, admitted. We've never tested it on this scale. Will it work? Admiral asked. Maybe, said, probably, the math checks out. Good enough, decided. Deploy the stabilizers. Captain's ship, the Morning Star, moved to the center of the void dimension. Around her, other volunteer ships took up positions. Together, they began activating the dimensional stabilizers. The effect was immediate. The collapsing space began to slow, then stop, then stabilize. The swarm felt it too. Their dying home was being saved. They're withdrawing from Council space, reported. The entities are pulling back. They're thanking us. Allowed himself a small smile. Tell them they're welcome, but tell them if they ever threaten our galaxy again, we won't be so nice. The dimensional stabilizers needed constant maintenance. Captain and her volunteers would need to stay in the void dimension to keep them running. How long? Admiral asked. Years, replied. Maybe decades, until the dimension is fully stable. I'm sorry. Don't be, said. We knew what we were signing up for. Besides, the swarm has agreed to help. They're actually quite friendly once they're not desperate. Laughed despite himself. Only humanity would make friends with an horror. It's what we do, sir. The human fleet began its withdrawal from the void dimension. Behind them, the swarm entities watched peacefully. Their home was saved. The war was over. It had taken humanity 7 months to end a conflict. The Council couldn't win in 300 years. 6 months later, diplomatic officer stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was full. Every member species had sent representatives. Ambassador spoke first. Officer, the Council has voted unanimously. We wish to formally apologize for our treatment of humanity 300 years ago. We were wrong. We ask that humanity rejoin the galactic community. Had prepared a speech, pages of diplomatic language about cooperation and mutual respect. She discarded it. No, she said simply. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. No, repeated. Humanity will remain independent, said. We'll trade with you, we'll talk with you, we'll help if you truly need it, but we won't rejoin the council. You had your chance to work with us. You chose to judge us instead. But the void swarm is no longer a threat, interrupted. We solved that problem, not by fighting the way you fight, not by following your rules. We solved it by being ourselves, and that's what we'll keep doing. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. If you ever face another threat you can't handle, you know where to find us. We'll come. Not because we're part of your council, but because it's the right thing to do. On Earth, Admiral retired the war fleet to active reserve status. The ships returned to their hiding places. The weapons went back to sleep mode, but they didn't power down completely. Sleep light, ordered, but stay ready. Because humanity had learned the lesson. Peace was temporary, threats were inevitable, and when the next crisis came, they would need to be ready. The only question was whether they'd be ready fast enough. 7 months after the end of the war, Captain was drinking his morning coffee when an alert came through. A signal from the void dimension. It was Captain. Horizon's Edge, this is Morning Star, her voice crackled through. We've completed stabilization ahead of schedule. The void dimension is secure, requesting permission to come home. Nearly spilled his coffee. Morning Star, say again, you're alive. Very much so, laughed. Turns out the swarm is really good at dimensional engineering. They helped us finish in months instead of years. We're ready for extraction. Stand by, said. He opened a channel to Earth. Fleet Command, we need a rescue operation. Team survived, they're coming home. Within hours, a rescue fleet was being assembled, because that was the other lesson humanity had learned. No one gets left behind. Admiral stood on Earth, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, his fleet slept. Somewhere else, the Council was trying to rebuild. And in another dimension entirely, the void swarm was learning to survive in their saved home. Sir, his aide asked, what are you thinking? I'm thinking the galaxy called us monsters 300 years ago, said. They were afraid of what we could do, and they were right to be afraid. But we saved them. That's the thing about monsters, smiled. Sometimes they're the heroes of the story. Sometimes the scariest thing in the darkness is the thing that protects you from everything else. He turned from the window. Make sure the fleet stays ready. The universe is a big place. There's always something else out there, and when it comes, humanity will be ready. What do we do until then? We live, said. We build, we prepare. And we remember that being the strongest doesn't mean you have to fight. It means you have the choice not to. And if we have to fight again? Smile faded. Then the galaxy will remember why they were afraid, and why they were grateful we were on their side. The stars shone above Earth, peaceful and calm. But beneath the surface, in hidden shipyards and secret bases, humanity's war machine slept. Lightly, but ready.